For so long, we've been told that getting good sleep is all about following this strict set of rules. But what if I told you the latest science shows it's not really about a checklist? Not at all. It's about understanding the powerful biological systems that are running the show inside your body. Yeah, you've probably heard the term sleep hygiene. And for most of us, what does that bring to mind? A long list of do's and don'ts, right? No coffee after 2 p.m., turn off your screens, you know the drill. But that way of thinking, it's quickly becoming a thing of the past. See, the new approach isn't about just blindly following rules. It's about learning how to actually manage the systems inside your own body. It's like learning to be the pilot of your own biology so you can create the perfect conditions for amazing sleep. So, what is this system exactly? How does it all work? Well, it all starts with two really powerful, distinct processes happening in your brain. You can think of them like two separate clocks, both working together, and they're the ones that decide when you feel sleepy and when you feel wide awake. Okay, so first up, you've got process C. That's your circadian rhythm. This is the big one. It's your body's master clock. It's located in a tiny part of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. Yeah, let's just call it the SCN. It runs on a 24-hour cycle, and it controls everything from your hormones to your body temperature. And its number one cue? Light. And then, working right alongside that is process S, the homeostatic sleep drive. The easiest way to think about this one is like a sleepiness meter. The longer you stay awake, the more this chemical called adenosine builds up in your brain, and that buildup is what creates that feeling of pressure to fall asleep. And this right here is why that afternoon cup of coffee keeps you buzzing at night. Caffeine is what's called an adenosine antagonist. It doesn't actually get rid of that sleepiness, it just plugs up the receptors in your brain so you can't feel it. It's basically just hiding how tired you really are for a little while. So here's the bottom line. It's all about how we manage these two processes. For your circadian clock, the master clock, the name of the game is consistency. Waking up and going to bed around the same time. And for your sleepiness meter, it's about letting that adenosine build up naturally. This simple framework is the new foundation for great sleep hygiene. Okay, so now that we've got the science down, let's get practical. Let's look at how you can actually design your environment to support those two internal clocks. It's time to build your own personal sleep sanctuary. Let's start with temperature. This one might actually surprise you. Study after study shows that the sweet spot for sleep is between 16 and 19 degrees Celsius. That's about 60 to 67 degrees Fahrenheit. And why so cool? Well, your body's core temperature actually needs to drop to help you fall asleep and stay asleep. A cool room just helps that process along. Next up, light. And when I say light, what I really mean is darkness. The goal is to get as close to total darkness as you possibly can. I mean, think about this. Research shows that even light under 1 lux, which is about as bright as a full moon on a clear night, even that little bit can be enough to suppress melatonin, which is the key hormone that tells your brain it's nighttime. And what about sound? You know, you might think you need complete silence, but that's not always the case. The real goal is a consistent, steady soundscape somewhere between 40 and 55 decibels, kind of like the gentle hum of a fan. A constant sound like white noise can actually mask those sudden shark noises that would normally wake you up. Now, let's talk about habits outside of the bedroom. A really interesting study from 2020 found that when people ate dinner late at night, they had an 18% higher blood sugar spike than when they ate the exact same meal earlier in the day. That kind of metabolic roller coaster is a huge enemy of deep, restful sleep. So what's the simple, actionable advice here? Just aim to finish your last meal at least 2 to 3 hours before you plan to hit the sack. This gives your body plenty of time to deal with that glucose before it needs to switch over to its nighttime repair work. But what if you've done all that? Your room is perfect, your timing is right, but your mind still won't shut down. Well, you might be dealing with what experts call a hyper-aroused brain. The good news is there are some really cool techniques to calm it down. So, does this sound at all familiar? The second your head hits that pillow, your brain decides it's time to host its own late-night talk show, right? Replaying every conversation from the day, planning tomorrow's to-do list, that mental chatter is a massive roadblock to sleep. So check this out. There's this brilliant technique called cognitive shuffling. It sounds complicated, but it's so simple. You just pick a totally neutral word, something like basket. Then, for each letter, you just start thinking of other random words. So for B, you might think of banana, boat, balloon. For A, apple, anchor. The key is that it's random. It breaks up those logical problem-solving thoughts that keep you awake and kind of nudges your brain into that weird pre-sleep state. All right, let's switch gears and talk about a very modern problem. What happens when the tech we're using to help our sleep actually becomes part of the problem? It can create this vicious cycle of anxiety. There is actually a clinical term for this now, orthosomnia. It's basically this unhealthy obsession with getting a perfect sleep score on your tracker. And the irony is just huge. The stress you feel chasing that perfect data actually ends up making your sleep worse. And get this isn't affecting everyone the same way. The data is pretty wild. Nearly a quarter of young adults, we're talking 18 to 35, say these apps actually cause them stress. Now compare that to adults over 66. It's less than 3%. That's a huge difference. So how can you tell if you're falling into this trap? Well, here are the red flags. Is your mood for the entire day determined by last night's sleep score? Do you trust what the app says more than how you actually feel? If that sounds familiar, it might be time to try a data fast. Seriously, just take the tracker off for a few nights and focus on your body's own signals. Okay, and finally, let's touch on some of these biohacks that you see all over social media. It is so important to figure out which trends might actually be helpful and which ones could be downright dangerous. A perfect example is mouth taping. The promise you see online is that it'll cure your snoring and make you sleep better. But here's the peril, and this is what doctors are warning about. For someone who has undiagnosed sleep apnea, blocking your mouth can be incredibly dangerous because you're cutting off a rescue airway your body needs when you stop breathing. And that really brings us to the main takeaway from all this new science. The goal is not to get a perfect score on an app. It's not about following every single rule to the letter. It's about listening to your body and just giving it the conditions it needs to rest and repair itself. So in the end, it's not about achieving perfection. It's about achieving understanding. It's about graduating from being a rule follower to being an expert operator of your own biology. So the real question you should be asking yourself is, what is your body telling you?